But I remember when I bought late registration, and I remember playing Roses, a song called Roses, for the first time.
Welcome to Message Reveal. Message Reveal identifies a vibe, a message, or a story told through lyrics of a song. And you guys, if you rock with me every Monday, you know how I do. I have a special guest for you. But if you're new, thank you for joining us. Subscribe and find out what's going on over here at Message Reveal. Now, let's get back to our guest. I'm super excited to tell you just a few things, as I always do, about this special guest. One, he promotes and develops communication skills. Yes. Number two, he invests in our youth improvement. And last, but definitely not least, he's a co-founder and chief operation officer of CTN, which stands for Changing the Narrative. You guys, please put your hand together and welcome my special guest, Mr. Malik Hassan. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I'm feeling amazing this morning. I was able to, well, one, I'm thankful just to wake up out of bed. But two, I was able to get my walk in, and whenever I'm able to get my morning walks in the morning, my days usually always just end up great. So
That's awesome. I like that you said that. We all need that a long time. I just saw a post where Denzel Washington had mentioned that we should all give ourselves 30 minutes of quiet time, meaning when we wake up, not turn on our phone, not turn on our computer, just really process. And he did give some practical points. He said, if you can't do it for 30 minutes, start a minute and then go 5 minutes. And I really do believe in that. So, yes.
absolutely, they say the first 20 minutes of your day sets the tone for your day.
Okay. All right. Well, I am so excited that you said yes to come on to my platform and support me and talk about communication because we can all improve on communication and we can all see it from we need to all see it from multiple angles in order for us to improve and be able to communicate effectively. So let's just, before we even get into that and talk about communication, tell me a little bit about who you are and your company, the CTN Changing the Narrative. Did I say it right?
You did. And a lot of people say change the narrative, but it's not. It's changing the narrative because we are a continuous process of improvement. But yeah, I can get a little spiel about who I am. So, hey world, my name is Malik Hassan. Full name Malik Hassan Asare Osai. But I just go by Malik Hassan just for short. Originally from Chicago, Illinois, Southside kid. Shout out to all my Chicago people that are listening. But born and raised in Chicago, went to grammar school on the low end, went to high school on the low end. And after I say when I turned about 18, no, not sorry, not 18, 20, I joined the United States Air Force, served 8 years in the United States Air Force, had an amazing time, exposed me to the world, helped me to pull me out of a toxic environment growing up in Chicago, and really helped to develop the mindset that I have now. And while I was in the military, I co-founded a nonprofit organization with two other distinguished gentlemen by the name of Changing the Narrative. And really, the idea behind the nonprofit came from us just wanting to serve our communities. We also are business owners in our own right. I own my own digital marketing agency, and my guys have their own thing. But we thought we thought it was a disservice to our community if we were just constantly taking, right? And a lot of, to at least in my opinion, a lot of entrepreneurs, they go into communities and they just take, and they're never giving back. So we wanted to change that narrative, and that's really why we started the organization, Changing the Narrative, just to give back to the community. So
I love it. I love it. I like the duality of you speaking like, yes, we're here to do business, but we also want to pour back. And when you look at it like that, it's always a continuous cycle that you're getting and they're getting. So I love that. I clap you up for that.
Thank you.
So I just want to mention, so I work for local government and I'm on a leadership team and we have um I guess a workshop or something every month. And I walked in and I saw you and your coworker at the workshop. I was like, okay, we got some brothers. Yeah. So I sat down and I was thoroughly impressed with how you guys presented. I think sometimes when we are of a different hue, we sometimes don't know how to communicate effectively to any and all groups. And I felt like you guys really did a great job with keeping us one engaged, two communicating and going back and forth. It wasn't just you guys talking, it was like a volleyball game. Here's a little bit for you. What do you think? And I really enjoyed how you guys actually did the presentation. I learned a lot from it. I was like, I have to have these young men on my platform. So before we dial down and get really, really deep into it, what was the catalyst to say, I want to work on communication?
Um, so I guess just to give a little bit of context for the viewers, the workshop that we were doing was a communications workshop, and that's usually something that we do with our youth. So we have a curriculum that myself and team developed called Mindset Matters, and we implement that curriculum into various schools or other youth serving nonprofit organizations. But we had the opportunity to teach some adults, so we like, hey, we'll teach them, you know. But with teaching our youth, communication is huge, right? A lot of the times from our organization, we deal with a lot of at-risk youth. And a lot of the times they're getting into trouble because they don't know how to effectively communicate with one another, right? So we try to eliminate that, help them to overcome those obstacles. So let's say if you are have a disagreement with somebody, you can talk it out. You don't have to just it doesn't have to just lead to fighting or something that's more detrimental. So that's kind of like what we do. But also too, I feel like when you are able to effectively communicate in various manners, you're able to understand yourself a little bit more as well, because it's not just about the other person, it's about you as well, right? Understanding about you. We talked about leadership style, we talked about communication style, right? That has to do with you, right? And it also helps you to develop a level of emotional intelligence. When you're communicating with somebody that you may not necessarily agree with their viewpoint, and you may want to in your internal state, you may want to lash out, right? But you learn how to effectively communicate so we can have maybe a agree to disagree type something. But the respect is always there. So, and same with adults. Like it's something that communication is something that you have to practice. Like if you don't use it, you lose it, just like with anything in life. So, but yeah, that's where it comes from.
I love that. And you're right. If you don't use it, you lose it. And you're right. That's with anything in life. So we have to be mindful and practice the things that really work for our good. But with that being said, I love music. Music has turned me out in a wonderful way. And I say all that to say, I have a question for you regarding music. Are you ready, sir?
Yeah.
Can you identify a song that has either blessed you, distracted you, or provided lessons? But before you answer, there's some rules to this, okay? If you can sing, I need you to sing your throat box out. I just see that
Sweet.
smile. If you can rap, I need you to come hard in the paint. You know how they do. But
Mhm.
if you cannot do either one, I need you to say it with passion. I need it to be bold. You know, when they say out in the streets, stand 10 toes down, I need to be able to feel that. So I'll go back to the original question: lessons, distraction, or blessing, one of the three.
Um, the song that comes to mind, my mom would love to watch this live right now. She would really get a kick at it, especially with me singing, because she thinks I'm so rigid. But I would say Get Up, Stand Up by Bob Marley. And pretty much the origins of that. My mom is a huge reggae fanatic, huge Bob Marley fan. So growing up, Bob Marley was actually like one of the first songs that I would hear. And I remember hearing Get Up, Stand Up for the first time and just like being captured by the beat, right? But I'll sing it. So
Oh,
so get up, mm, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight. And I remember the first I guess it would not the chorus, but the first verse is like preacher man, don't tell me heaven is under the earth. I know you don't know what life is really worth. And then he starts going into it. I remember as a kid listening to it, and I'm like, because I grew up in the church, and I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, and it just really, I guess you can say, allowed me to just expand my perspective and start to question things, different things that were happening or different things or internal states that I would feel, like different energies I would feel. And honestly, I feel like it gave me a way of verbally expressing some of the things that I would feel, and sometimes, just to be honest, like sometimes I would be in church and certain messages or just certain things that I would learn or things that were trying to be, I guess, not to make this conversation religious, but beat down my throat, just didn't resonate with me.
mm-hmm.
And when listening to Bob, he just started to connect a lot of pieces that I was missing, and I was able to, form my own perspective and opinion of things and things of that nature. But that's what comes to mind. I think to answer the question, it brought bliss. It brought a way of expression, of me expressing myself and understanding life at a young age, into my life. So
I
that's
love that. Yes. And thank you for singing. I didn't want to interrupt. I was like, yes, get up, stand up. Hey, stand up. What is get up,
and
stand up,
stand up for your rights.
stand up for your rights? That is a song that will be universally, it will never go out of style because you must get up and you must stand up for your rights. Because if you can't stand up for your rights, how can you stand up for anybody else?
Absolutely. And if I could add one thing about Bob that I didn't realize until I became older as an adult, just listening to the music, because you always learn new things as you're listening, re-listening to the songs, is his songs are a call to action. Like
Yes.
he wasn't just I mean, he was making feel good music for the soul, right? He was expressing himself, but he was expressing himself to inspire and motivate other people to do something about their circumstances, to do something about their lives, and educating them at the same time, So
Yes.
actually something that I came to appreciate about Bob way later on in life, so
Wow. I love that you can identify that message. And by you saying that, so I have invisible pews. There is levels. You got one, two, three is a visual. Nobody, you can't see the people there, but you're speaking something to someone that needs to have that call to action, or someone has spoke to them and they're just not quite there. I feel like if they put on that song and listen to it maybe two or three times, it may inspire them to say, you know what, I got to go to the next level. And that's what we want music to do. It does all those things in between too, but we also have to have that, like you said, call to action.
absolutely.
So let's, before we get into a little bit more about your communication, I know when we were at our workshop, you did the four pillars of communication. And I'm going to have you just to touch on those four little pillars because it was able to give me some insight on someone that I knew. And I was like, okay, maybe they use that particular communication style to adapt to the world. Because I remember you saying something as you talked about the four, you talked about how you interact with your mother on one end, but how your or your grandmother, excuse me, and then how you are massively dominant on another end. So we'll talk about that. But before we talk about that, can you tell me a little bit about your name? Because I love the way it sounds, the tone, the cadence. It sounds like a king.
Yes, well, it is meant for a king, actually.
Okay, okay, spirit. Okay.
So the origins of my name come from my biological father. And at the time when I was born, he was undergoing the process of converting into Islam at the time. He ended up later down the road. We actually became a Moor later down the road, but he gave me the name Malik Hassan, was actually the name that he was going to convert to. So he bestowed that name upon me, and pretty much Malik Hassan just means handsome king or handsome prince.
Okay, all right. Spirit was
Uh,
working and I didn't know.
but so that's why he bestowed that name upon me, and I'm so grateful that he did because growing up, I could always draw power from my name. I could always draw encouragement from my name. Even when I was down on myself, I could just from my name alone. I'm like, man, look, I'm a prince, I'm a king, like I have to comport myself in this man. I have to whatever. And then my last name, so. Actually, and we talked a little bit about this beforehand, but so my maiden last name, my biological father's last name is Edwards, but I ended up dropping that last name because that last name is not a name of our ancestors. And my dad even dropped his last name. He doesn't even have the name Edwards. He doesn't have the last name Edwards anymore. His last name is Bey, because he's a Moor now. So Razul Hassan Bey is his full name. But I took on the name Asare Osai, which is of Ghanaian origin, or Ghanaian origin. And the reason behind that was just through learning about our genealogy and learning about our ancestors. And I also have native ancestors as well. But back in the motherland, back in Africa, I wanted to take on a name that was from the homeland, something that was ancestral. So when I met my now wife, I didn't want her to take on the last name Edwards because I never liked the name. It never resonated with me ever. Um, so I told her, hey, let's learn more about our history and let's just change our last name. Let's create something together. So through the research, she found Osai or OC is also OC as well. Um, and which means noble, somebody that's noble, somebody that's trustworthy. And I was like, okay, that's cool, but I felt like it didn't capture the full story. So I came up with a SRA, or found, let me not say came up with, I found
There
uh,
you go.
a SRA, or sorry, and which means warrior, conqueror, somebody that overcomes adversity, obstacles,
Woo.
teacher. So I was like, hey, what about this? And she was like, oh, that's cool. But she still wanted, the other name. I was like, well, why don't we combine them and create a story, right? And so that's what we ended up doing. Sorry, Osai. And pretty much when you combine the names, it just means somebody that's trustworthy, somebody that's dependable, that people can lean on, that overcomes obstacles, that overcomes adversity despite the fact. And that's the legacy that we wanted to create when we formed our union. Also, that's the legacy that we want to leave behind for our lineage, you know. So
I
that's
love
if I know it's like a long drawn out story,
no,
but it's different pieces to it. But that's where it comes from.
I love it. I love that you were able to give that background. I don't know if you know, a lot of people that came over to this country, they did that exact thing that you're talking about. It's just not told. Like, for example, when they do their family tree, they say, oh, their name was this, but they cut it off or they added to it. And I think if you have the opportunity, some people absolutely love their names, but if you have the opportunity to, I say, modify it in some form, why not? And you did just that, and you're the example of that. And someone may be thinking, wait a minute, I didn't know I had the opportunity to do that. And just by you telling your story, they may be able to, go on that path. Speaking of that, excuse me. Speaking of that, let's talk about the four pillars of communication that you presented to us and just tell us a little bit about it and how this has really resonated with the youth that you teach.
Yeah, absolutely. So the four different types, and there's many different types of communication styles. We just kind of gave you the main four. And I'm gonna try my hardest to remember the four, but it's aggressive, passive aggressive, submissive, and it
I
is
think it was direct, right?
that was more aggressive, but it might be direct. I forget exactly what the fourth one is, but I can talk to the ones that I did mention.
Well, I want you to paint a picture to give me a youth that actually came in and participated and was able to identify their communication style and what was the outcome of that.
Yeah. Let me think. We've done this workshop many times to hundreds of youth. So usually what we do is when we teach it in the form of a skit, right? So we have them, kind of act out each, communication style, and then we try to identify as a game for the other students which communication style they're actually acting out. But I want to say there was a student that their communication style was passive aggressive, to whereas they would crack a lot of jokes, right? So for example, if you said like, let's say you were a teacher and they had their hand raised for a little while, and maybe they dropped their hand, and you called on them when they dropped their hand, and they say something to the effect of, "Well, I did have a question, but now I don't." That's more like passive aggressive. And but that passive aggressiveness actually was just an insecurity that they had of being not wanting to be ostracized or not wanting to what would you say, kind of, sometimes in classrooms, students can be a bit fearful to actually give the answer, so they
Mhm.
lean on like humor in order to, I guess, give them confidence to speak up or speak out. So that's one thing that I could think of off top.
Yeah.
I don't know if it really answers the question per se.
It did what you are bringing to the attention that sometimes they feel awkward, they feel shy, they feel inadequate. And that's a mask that they maybe choose to use that protects them, but it may not be the effective way to communicate.
Absolutely. And it could be, depending on the setting. Maybe in that setting, maybe with a group of friends, cool. Maybe not so much with the teacher.
Yeah. And that's the thing I think that is so necessary for, I say, our babies. Our young people need to be able to identify the proper setting and the proper communication. And I say that because if you're going into government or corporate or private business, it is a certain tone and cadence you should communicate. And you don't say, oh, that's just who I am. Now, amongst your friends, your peers, you're having fun, you're going out to the movie, it may be another type, but truly identifying that, can you talk to that? Do you talk to the youth about the proper way of communicating in the proper place and time?
Yes, and actually, as you were talking, I remembered the fourth. It was adaptive.
Okay.
And that's what we tell them. And that was the same thing that we were teaching you all when we held the session was you have to be adaptive when you're communicating. Sometimes your go-to communication style may not be what's best for this particular environment or this audience, right? So I gave that example that you brought up with my grandmother, right? With my grandmother, when I'm communicating with her, I'm very submissive. When I'm communicating with her, I'm like, okay, Granny, like, yes, like my tonality is even like soft, and I'm very just gentle with her, right? But when I'm speaking in front of a crowd, or even when I was talking to you all, it was more of a dominant, more assertive type communication where I have to, establish my presence. I have to project my voice. I have to, be a little bit more firm in order to capture the attention. But also within that, you have to know when to adapt and switch to a different communication style. And maybe I'm pretty sure I did. I switched to a more submissive communication style when you all were having dialogue, right? So I can be receptive and learn from you all as you were, pouring in information or the experiences that you may have had. So that's the communication style that we usually tell people to lean more towards is having or just be aware of, is being adaptive, just being a chameleon, just knowing how to, hey, when I go here, I'm gonna have to be more like this. When I'm here, I'm gonna have to be more like this. But because we all have our go-to communication style, and my go-to is more assertive,
Yes.
usually, but I can't be like that with everybody.
Yeah. I like that you put a title on it because I think we all adapt. In the Bible, it states it's saying that it's a time and place for everything.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that to me applies to communication. And if we're not exposed to it, meaning our young people, they can lose options or opportunities because they don't know how to appropriately suit the environment that they're in. Meaning, you're going for an interview, you got booty shorts on, and you like, "What's up, cuz?" That's
Mm.
totally inappropriate. You need to come in and maybe be assertive, shake their hand, and sit down and be able to dialogue and have that effective communication. So I think what you guys are doing are absolutely amazing. I feel like that you guys, because you gave it to us, and we're all, I want to say seasoned adults, but you were so well versed in getting us to communicate and be effective in that, like allowing us to give our stories.
Absolutely. I mean, we have done it a lot of times. So we have had practice. But I mean, there's something to learn from everybody. And the big thing is our thing is when we are holding our workshops, we're never trying to just let it be death by PowerPoint. We want to have a conversation. We want to try to keep it as engaging as possible. We want to try to have fun, and all of those things. So it's really key that you, at least when you're teaching these kind of things in the manner of which you're teaching, and like I said, we deal primarily with the kids. They don't want to just be lectured at. They're lectured to all day long, right? So when they get with us, we try to give them a break. Like, hey, loosen up. We're here to have fun. So we bring that same approach to whoever we're, holding a workshop with, and then, when you're able to do that, that's when the best ideas come out. That's when the creativity comes out. That's when the innovation comes out. The vulnerability,
Yes.
comes out. When somebody can say, hey, I'm more of a, my communication style is I'm very submissive, and I have a tough time talking to my manager. You know,
Hmm.
how can I navigate this?
Yeah.
Right. That's when that type of stuff comes out when you create that kind of environment, that kind of space within
Well,
the work.
it was definitely refreshing. Of course, I'm in a lot of meetings, sometime multiple times throughout the day, and it was refreshing that it was more interactive than a meeting. And to me, when it's more interactive, you feel more relaxed. So that's what you guys provided, and I'm really appreciative of that. So let's turn the tables and let's go back to music. Hey,
Got
it
me singing.
is. It is what it is. And I want you to sing again if you can. So, can you identify a song that you had the opportunity to purchase as a child and no one provided any influence for you? Like maybe you received some money for the holidays or you cleaned the house, whatever, and you like, I don't care what nobody's saying. This is the song or artist that I'm purchasing. Can you identify?
Yes, I can. The first album, I got to say this album that I ever purchased, this was CDs was still a thing, um, was Late Registration by Kanye West. Now,
Woo!
I'm from Chicago, right? So Kanye was a big influence. He's actually at the time he was actually my favorite rapper. And I think I want to say my mom had bought me College Dropout, and that had like Through the Wire on it. And that's when and Through the Wire was the first Kanye song that I had heard, and I just became hooked on Kanye. But I remember when I bought Late Registration, and I remember playing Roses, a song called Roses, for the first time. And I love stories. I love movies. I love telling stories. I love listening to stories. I love history. So this song came in the form of what was told in the form of a story. And I could try to rap it.
Okay, come on, give me some.
Let me see. So it's well, let me see. I can remember the first. Um, I'm blanking on how it starts, but I can try to pick it up. But it's like, but can I please give her these flowers? The doctors don't want to take procedures. They claim my heart can't take the anesthesia. It'll send a body into a seizure. Something. I forget exactly. But he was telling the story of when his grandmother passed away.
Mm,
She was in the hospital, and he walked us through start to finish. And it was just so captivating. I feel like I was there in the hospital with him, you know.
wow.
And he was talking to the doctors, and they were saying this, and he was like, one of the doctors asked him for an autograph while he was there, and he was like, "Man, like, bump that, like, like my grandmother's dying, you know." And I just remember just being there, and then he ends the last verse with, instead of sending flowers, we're the roses, like the family in the room with the grandmother, we're the roses, right? And I just remember just contemplating on that, like, man, that was like, and you kind of like when you listen to, you kind of get goosebumps, it's like emotionally captivating. And it took me a long time to try to comprehend what he was like saying when he said, instead of sending flowers, we're the roses. And even still, as an adult, I still analyzed that last verse. And I was like, man, that was just like out of this world.
So
Uh,
give us a little bit of your perception of, instead of sending flowers, we're the roses. Give your perspective on that.
for me, I think he was showcasing because he talks a little bit about his aunties and his grandfather's influence later, earlier in the song. He was saying that family is everything. We don't need any material stuff. We just need one another. And I grew up in a big family, and let's just say if we had a Christmas, right? As long as all the family's there, we good. We don't need food. I mean, that contributes, right? But we
Yeah.
don't, we don't need to be giving out presents. We don't need to be doing like we just need to be together. And as long as we together, that's everything. And I could just relate to that because with me growing up in a big family, just when I have all my family together, that's when I really truly feel whole. You know,
Oh,
that's when I truly feel like just the most warmth and love, when I'm around all my cousins and my aunties, everybody's there, everybody's with just positive energy, and we're stronger together.
yes.
We're stronger together. So that's the mindset that it puts me in, and how I'm able to like emotionally connect with that last verse.
I love that. Now say the name again just in case anybody want to put it on.
It's Roses by Kanye West.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for taking us down that journey. And if you think in between of us talking of the verse you want to rap, just come
Okay.
in and rap that verse.
If I can, you know what? Let me just quick Google, because
Yeah.
if I just remember the first how it starts, then I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay, I got it now. See, I just have to
Okay.
read.
Come on.
So it's like, I know it's past visiting hours, but can I please give her these flowers? The doctors don't want to take procedures. They claim my heart can't take the anesthesia. It'll send a body into a seizure. And then he's like, that's the little thing about the hospital bed. It'll stop beeping. And then he said, hey, chick, I'm at a loss for words. What did you say at this time? Remember when I was 9? And then he Starts talking. And then the verse is like, let me read the hook. The hook is like, I smile when roses come to see me. And I can't wait for a sunny day seeing through your eyes. Can't wait for the clouds to break. And then he has like, and it's like the heartbeat. It's like do, 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 right? He's like, I'm outside. And the verse two is like, I'm outside of the emergency room. You can feel my heart beat. If she gonna pull through, we gonna find out soon. But right now she sleep. And he said, my mama say she could pass away any day. Hey, chick, what these doctors know anyway? Let me see them x-rays. I ain't no expert. I'm just hurt. Cause and he starts talking about more family stuff. But
Yes.
then at the end of the song, he has Patti LaBelle hop on the track and then she starts just like wailing off. And it's just a beautiful song.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I can't wait to when we get off to tap in and just really listen to it and see my perspective as well on that. So
I
thank you for
definitely
sharing.
butchered it a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, no. Listen, the mere fact that you attempted to do it is all that counts. That's what we just have fun here on this podcast. So, yes. So, let's talk about changing the narrative again. CTN. I understand it's just not one location. How many locations and where are they located?
Yeah, so we started in Las Vegas, North Las Vegas to be exact. Shout out to Northtown, the city of North Las Vegas, and we've done work with all of the municipalities. But the city of North Las Vegas actually gave us our start. So I just got to shout out Northtown.
Wow.
But we started in Las Vegas. We expanded out of Las Vegas into Pensacola, Florida. And we have some initiatives in Pensacola, Florida. And really the Pensacola came from one of our co-founders. He's born and raised from Pensacola. So he had the idea of, because he has a twin brother there, which is actually, he's a part of our organization as well. He could, run some efforts there. And it's they need a lot of help there as well. So we started an initiative there called Real Heroes Read. And what we do is we promote literacy within kids from the ages of, well, within the grades of first to third grade. So whoever falls within that range. And the reason we started that is because literacy levels can be directly tied to incarceration rates, right? So what the prison systems do is, and this is what they don't teach us, what the prison systems do is they take the data of how many of the kids that are at a third grade reading level in third grade, and they're able to determine how many cells they need to create, how many
Mm.
prisons they need to make, right? They're able to because what we don't realize is the prison system is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, right?
Oh,
Like, right? It's like it's business, right? Like you can invest in prisons, and so they have stakeholders, they have investors, they want a return, right, on their investment, right? How do they get paid? Well, they need inmates, right? So when we learned that, we had to take action. And reading has been a big part of my life and the reason why I am the way that I am now and how I'm able to speak to the things that I'm able to speak to is because I became an avid reader. And when I was in third grade, and later on in life, I didn't value reading, right?
mm.
We're not trying, we are changing the narrative of that. Like reading is cool, reading is empowering, reading is fun. And we even had, I can just share a quick story, and this was actually happening in Las Vegas. We were at Sandy Searles Elementary School, which is on the east side of Vegas, and we were doing our thing. And usually when we start, we ask the kids who likes to read, right? And usually the kids would just raise their hand because they don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to, so they'll just be like, "Oh, me," right? Even though they probably don't even read. But one of the kids was like, straight up, "I don't read," right? So we like, "Oh man, like well, why don't you read?" He was like, "Man, because reading is boring. It's not fun." So we were like, "Okay." He was like, "You know what? We appreciate you giving us your honest feedback," and we pretty much told him at the end of this session, we hope to, change his perspective. Maybe he'll learn something new. And then we asked him the question, um, well, maybe reading isn't fun to you because you're not reading things that interest you.
Mm,
Maybe you think reading is boring because you're just getting what the school is feeding you.
hmm.
So we gave him that. We did the session, rocked the session, had a ton of fun. It's super interactive. We have like a dance, we have a song that we do with the kids. But after the session, he came up to me and he was like, "Hey," he was like, "I'm gonna check out a book at the library." He was like, "But only if you read it with me." You read,
Wow.
and in that moment, man, my heart just melted. I was like, "Oh man." I was like, of course I'll read it with you, you know? And he ended up getting a book on birds of prey. So it was like eagles and falcons and all of the hunting birds. And we went to the library and we sat down and I read the book with him. We didn't finish the entire book. So he had to get back to class. And before I left, he was like, promise me you'll come back and we'll read again. And I was like, man, I promise I'll be back and we'll read again. But like that's the impact. And I was just reflecting on that moment and I was like, man, like, and I don't know yet, right? Because I mean he still has to mature, but we potentially could have changed the trajectory of this young man's life.
Okay, I'm going to do a pause moment. I have pause moments on this podcast, and this is a moment. Not potentially you
Mhm.
did. It is not whether you did. You did for the child to approach you. May I ask how old was the child?
He had to have been like maybe seven,
Okay.
7.
He approached you and asked you, he saw something in you that he could identify that you were safe, that you were sincere, and you were honest. So when you tell that story, yes, you made a difference. Not trying to tell you what to do, but absolutely, that's a heart jerker for a child. Was it a male too?
No, he looked like me.
See, and that's the thing. Sometimes that's the hardest one to be able to penetrate because they kind of say, no, nobody cares. So, absolutely. I think that is an absolutely wonderful story. How long ago did this happen?
That was that was in October.
Okay.
That was
So,
in
since
October.
that's in October, do you plan on every year or every so often following up with him to let him know that you're connected and you're checking in on his progress of reading?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually in the works of building out a partnership with that school and actually bringing the full program to that school. So yeah,
Wonderful.
and I wish, reflecting back on it, I wish I could have got his information. It was a lot of things were happening as we had that moment, but I didn't get his information. So I don't know his name or like,
Mm,
his information. But when I go back to the school, I hope that he's still there and we can reconnect and rekindle that because I definitely want to, follow through on that promise that I made to him.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that was that moment that we had. So that's Real Heroes Read. Started that in Pensacola, Florida, and we're building out some initiatives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then Chicago, my home city, to help the youth in those various places. But I mean, the vision for us is to be in every major city across the nation, and then
Wow.
also to do things internationally.
So that means not only that, if that's your vision, you're going to be training a lot of individuals to do what you're doing. And
Mhm.
if it's around the world, that means you're going to be traveling outside of the world. So I'm saying all this because I'm speaking this high frequency into your universe so you can execute it on a high level. And when you start to do international, then you need to come back on to the message reveal and we'll talk about look, this is what he said before, and look where he's at now. I speak that onto you.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate that. You know what we can do when I'm in the other country, we can record the episode. That's what
There
we
you
can do.
go. There you go. And I wouldn't mind go. I do have a passport. I'll come do it live.
Oh, come on. Come on.
So with that being said, let's talk about music one more time and let's talk about the opportunity to give music out in a really big, amazing way. And I'm saying a song to dedicate to the world because we talked about globally, we talked about you doing your work, and I like that you said First, let me start at home. I want to do it here, local, then out throughout the country, and then throughout the world. If you can dedicate a song to the world to represent you as a whole or pieces of you, what song would you identify?
Honestly, it wouldn't be one song, but it would be, and I'm not necessarily, this isn't like a genre of music, but binaural beats. Um,
Oh, say that again.
binaural beats.
Okay, never heard of it.
So binaural beats are essentially just sound, the high vibrational sounds. They have different gigahertz and the different frequency, the different levels of frequency does different things for you physically and spiritually. Uh,
Yes,
and today, this is what I listen to today, and this is what I start my morning with every single morning to align myself, mind, body, spirit. And I listen to different ones, and sometimes before bed as well. But I would say, man, tap into binaural beats, um, get in sync with you. And
yes.
when I say with you, I'm talking about you beyond your name, beyond your personality, and all the ego and all that type stuff. But get to know who you truly are and find your rhythm. We all have a vibrational frequency
Yes,
internally. And if you don't like the vibrational frequency that you're on currently, you have the ability to change that vibrational frequency to something. So I would say, binaural beats is just something, and sound bowls too. You can YouTube this stuff. You can just YouTube binaural beats and find what you like, what resonates with you. And same with like sound bowls and stuff like that. And this is very, very therapeutic. Very
I,
therapeutic.
I love that. Come on in here and changing the narrative and giving me something new. I am aware of different frequencies do different things to the body. I was also informed just maybe 5 years ago that the reason why the organ is the organ, it was to tune the organs within our body to a higher frequency. So all of those things are uh, part of the ecosystem of music. So thank you for being the first to talk about that. And hopefully, my people in the pews will tap in and find out more about that. Before we get out of here, I do have two questions. One, let's talk about, which is very important. I wanted to talk about it at the beginning, but I got sidetracked. Conquering um, setbacks. We all have it. I call it life be life, and we have to learn how to navigate, through life.
Yeah.
It really does. But how do we communicate that process to our young children so they can be effective through navigating through what we call life?
Um, Two things. One, you have to do it yourself. You always have to be a living testimony of anything that you're telling somebody else to do, right? So you have to be personally conquering setbacks within your own life. And guess what? You already are, because everybody, to get to the point of adulthood or whatever, you have conquered some type of setback or adversity at some point of your life, right? Um, and two, just communicate what you do. Like, just communicate who you are. I'm a firm believer, just speaking from experience. You can share other people's stories, but a lot of the times when you just share your own story and just share how you have done something or the steps that you took yourself, that is means way more than you telling somebody else's story,
Yeah.
you know, because the person is talking to you because you have their buy-in,
Yeah.
so that's what I do. I speak from experiences. Whenever I'm telling somebody to do something, I'm telling them what I did, and I
Mhm.
know this works because I did it. I'm living proof. I'm a living testimony myself. So if you do this, 9 times out of 10, it's going to work for you. If it doesn't work for you, then find what does. Maybe you can take 2 things that I did and find, the 3 things to get you to, wherever you want to go. But not to make it too long-winded or overly wordy. That's what I would do. So one, be a living testimony of the things that you're telling somebody else to do. And two, just share your own story and share the stuff that you took in order to overcome that adversity and obstacles.
No, I agree. I think that's wonderful. I recently did a workshop at a church, and one of the things I said to them, I said, everything I'm saying to you applies to me. I have built a table with food on there. Your option is to go and choose or select what works for you. And the great thing about talking or sharing those things, at the moment, it may be one thing that only works for you, but a year down the line, the spirit will remind you, and you go, wait a minute, I remember they saying that. Oh, I get it. Or it works for your benefit. But I love, 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 love that you said you first.
Absolutely. It all starts with you. And that's
Yeah.
one of the affirmations we say to the kids. It all starts with you.
Yeah, I love that. Before we get out of here, before we say goodbye to our audience, can you please give any social media handles, any way, if say someone saw this like, hey, he was so dope, I want to find out more about him, or I want you to come and actually do a workshop or a program, whatever the case may be. Can you just provide some contact information?
Absolutely. So I'll give my name again, everyone. My name is Malik Hassan, Asari Osai, or just Malik Hassan for short. And you can find more about myself and my organization on social media at We Are CTN. Again, that's We Are CTN. Or you can just Google changing the narrative. Or I'm sorry, you can just Google We Are CTN.org. We Are CTN.org. Or just Google Change the Narrative Las Vegas or Change the Narrative. We should pop right up.
Yes. Well, it has been amazing. I love learning and looking at life from multiple perspectives. You have definitely, with the workshop, you enlightened me, and I was like, "Ooh, I can't wait to see if he would come into my platform." So, thank you again for saying yes. Um, on my platform, I always talk about the journey and the destination. The journey is where we learn and where we grow. The destination is where we celebrate. Too many times we're out here doing all this work and we forget to celebrate, to have fun, to embrace everything that we have done. But the key to it all is to get back into that journey so we can learn, we can elevate more. It's a cyclical process. It continues to go and go and go. We're not just in one place. So I say all that to say, when I have my ladies on, I bow to them. But when I have my men on, I salute them. So I salute you, sir. And
Respect.
with that being said, I always give my guests the absolutely last words. So last words go to you, sir.
Last words. Dare to be yourself. Dare to be yourself. God made you uniquely you. So don't be afraid to be who God intended you to be. And that's all I'll say.
Oh, wonderful. You guys, please put your hands together and welcome my amazing special guest, Mr. Malik Hassan. Thank you so much. And as I say to all my guests, I'll see you out here in these Las Vegas streets. All right. Thank you.